Hi, this is Trish from Everyday Stitches, and I'm just going to show you a few things about cutting the gateway blocks. First, I'm going to show how to cut stacks in a different way I do the reverse arc, and then I'll talk about directional prints, and then we'll do a little fussy cutting. So I have this already cut into the strips, the 18-inch long strips, just like it says to do in the directions. And then I'm going to cut these down. Okay, so I'm going to cut them to length. And here I have about 6 layers. So when I go to cut my background pieces, I just flip this upside down. And then I line this up just as it would say, as it says in the directions with the guidelines. And I'm left-handed, so this template's right side up for me when I cut this. And then normally I'd go ahead and cut those scraps out for the scrap bonus quilt that we have for this. So there we go. And then pick one side to cut down to 4.5. There we go. So that's the trick I use with the sides. Now for the arches, I just need to cut the width of the arcs, which happens to be the width of this ruler, so that's nice. Up a bit. So I started off folding these like it says in the pattern, and I kind of got bored with that. So instead, I just started marking the center. You can just finger press it to mark the center. You can get a marking tool, whichever. So mark the center. And then take your curve piece template A and put it on the center mark with that edge, and then this edge at the bottom corner, and cut. And then same thing on this side. And once you have one done, what you can do, if you don't want to mark the center, just take one, lay it down on your next pile, and just use that as your guideline. Line your template up with that. Okay. So the directions obviously in the pattern are just fine. I just wanted to do stacks because, yeah, I was just getting in a hurry. Whoops. Okay, so those are the centers. So that's just cutting in stacks. Now let's talk about directional prints. Okay, so on directional prints, they either run down the bolt or across the bolt. So that's just a matter of which way the design runs. So here's the selvage. The stripes run down the bolt because your width is this way and your bolt length is this way. So this is a down the bolt pattern. Here's the selvage on this. This is across the bolt, meaning the stripes run from selvage to selvage. So if you never knew what those terms meant, that's what they mean. So first I'm just going to cut this one, just like it says in the directions. Fold it in half to make it easier. So first we cut the width of the arches. And then we cut the width of the background pieces. I'm going to double check the dimensions, make sure I don't get it wrong. And then cut the width of the arch. We would cut the height. I guess I said that wrong earlier. We cut the height of the arch. Cut the height of the arch first. Now we cut the width. So when we cut the arch, I'll do it like the directions say this time. So I only have one fabric. So there's the arch, and then I'll cut the background pieces. Burying my rulers. Okay. And now I'm going to cut the background arcs. So as you can see, the center arch goes one direction with the original instructions, and the side pieces go the opposite directions, which is fine. And it was written this way so we'd have the most usable fabric in the end left over. But if you want to control which way the directions go, we're going to talk about that. So here, this is the down the bolt pattern. Right. So for this one, I'm going to have my stripes going up and down on all the pieces. So I'm going to cut the width of the block first, and then I'll cut the height of the arch. So now your wide side, so fold that now. Oops, didn't quite press the whole time there. Okay, so now my arch is going to go up and down. So I want my background pieces to also go up and down. So for that, I'm going to cut the width of the arch first. So I'm going to show you a couple of tricks here. So you're just going to cut the width, and then we'll cut the height. Okay, and then sometimes, if you have 21 inches of length to your fat quarter, you're probably fine. But I find a lot of times my fat quarters aren't that long, or maybe you've pre-washed and it shrunk. So what you can do is go ahead and cut one piece to the 4.5 inches instead of trimming it later. And so this might mess up your scraps for the Scrappy Happy Baby quilt. But then we're going to cut them to height. So now you'll have to be more careful than usual. I'm going to have all of my pieces facing the same way. So the right side's up on everything. And I want my shorter arc to be on the right side. It doesn't really matter which side it's on, but so I'm going to flip these right sides together. I'll line up this side, this outside edge, and then I'll just go ahead and cut it. So this is just helpful if your fabric's a little short, because again, it might mess up your scraps if you're doing the baby quilt with the scraps. You might get a little fewer. I haven't actually checked that out. So there you go. So that just might help you if you're in a pinch. And now all of your directions are the same. Now you might have the opposite problem. So this is a print that's running across the bolts. So let's say I want to have this going up and down as well, I guess. I should have done an opposite order because this one makes no sense going that way. But so last time we cut the width first. This time we're going to cut the height first. And then we'll cut the width of that and cut that arch. I'm just going to cut one out. Cut the arch. So this is going the same way as the last one, but remember they were running opposite ways on the bolt. So I am cutting them the opposite direction. So now I want my background pieces to also go up and down. So I need to cut the height first. And then here's where you're going to run into problems because you can't get the full width out of 18 inches. So normally, even if we were going to cut it, you could cut 5 1/4, and that will go here, and then you're 4 1/2. So you're going to be short. So unless you can get it out of your spare piece, which you could get, we have plenty there, but it's going to be going the opposite direction. So it's still going to be a problem if you need to switch these to the opposite direction unless you have a generous half yard. And then fussy cutting is the last thing I wanted to talk about. So originally I was just going to cut this fabric just however, but the more I looked at it, the more I thought I wanted to go ahead and fussy cut the arches. So to do that, I'm just going to take an arch that I've already cut and try to decide how I want to do this. I guess I'll just have this at an angle in the middle. So if I fold this arch in half-ish, then I can kind of get an idea of where that butterfly is going to fall. And this little set of dots is kind of in the center, so I'll go with that. And make sure you have enough room on the bottom and around it, so when you sew it, you still have your image is kind of in the center. Then I would just take my arch and basically use my arch that I've already cut as a template. And you just have to be careful here because you don't want to just keep trimming down your pieces. So if you have a lot of fussy cutting to do, I would just trade out which arch pieces I used, so I wasn't nibbling away at one over and over again. And you can just use a straight edge to cut the bottom. Whoops. And I don't think I would bother fussy cutting the background pieces because you're really not going to see them once they're all pieced in there. So there's some fussy cutting. So there are a lot of different ways to cut these out. Those are just a few. I'm sure there are plenty of other ideas out there.